Hey guys, Suki here, and today is going to be the last day of September, the last day before Saitober, which means starting from tomorrow, we will only have BlueLock Season 2 and Itoshi content on this channel, which means I won't be able to get to the Barou and Shidou Part 3 video anytime soon. So to enjoy this video and to recap for anyone who forgot how the Barou and Shidou swap places video worked out, I'm going to be doing a re-upload containing both of the parts together. So hope you guys enjoy. Suki out. Hey guys, it's Fofo Tsukiyomi here today, and I'm going to be talking about Barou versus Shidou in a swapped roles comparison. I've already done a video on how they fare against each other in every round in BlueLock, so if you want to check that out, please do. And also join my Discord to leave suggestions like this one. This one was suggested by Bila. I don't even know how to pronounce the last part, but in his Discord he's called I Don't Know Myself, so thank you for the suggestion. Now let's get on to the video. Now first we're going to be talking about Barou and Shidou's role, because that is way more easier to talk about, as Barou would have scored way more goals with less competition. I'm assuming we do not know who was in Shidou's stratum, so I'm assuming Barou would score even more goals than he originally did, which was 10. But that's a kind of a conspiracy, because he did not score all the 5 goals in the first match, and Team X only scored 10 goals, which meant that Barou did not score 10 goals. I don't know why the author put that. Maybe to hype us up. Who knows? Anyway, now in Shidou's being in Barou's stratum, here's where things change. I just remembered that Shidou, even though he's an offensive beast, he's not a defensive beast. Even though, like Karasu stated in chapter like 98 or 97, that Shidou's feats kind of dimmer down when it comes to defense, so that means that he wouldn't have been able to stop the shot. If Barou couldn't stop it, I don't think Shidou would have. And plus, Isagi passed it to Kunigami, who was way out of range, so I don't think Shidou would have jumped to save it when he was marking Isagi. So it would have been 5-1, but yeah, it would have probably been worse than 5-1, if I'm being honest. It would have been probably like 10-1. That's how bad it would have been. And plus, for the sake of plot armor and Goat Sagi, I need Team Z to score a goal, even though Shidou would have probably stopped it. Because if they don't score here, they die in this BlueLock campaign. Now, the next game they undergo in Team X is the game against Team W, the Waninama brothers. And this game would have been closer, as it was 4-1 originally, but here in this timeline, I believe it would have been like 3-4. I still believe if they double teamed, or like how many teamed Shidou, that the rest of the team wouldn't have done anything, as shown. As long as the rest of the team guards Shidou and the Waninama brothers are tag teaming the rest of the team, I think they would have been fine surviving this game, as Shidou cannot carry a team alone. Even though he's very good, the Waninama brothers were able to beat Barou, who was alone, so that's a testament to their feat. And if it wasn't for the fact that Ryo got Zantetsu and Nagi to coordinate with him, they would have not beat him. Now, in the third match, here's the major flaw. The game against Team Y was very close, 3-4, and with Nico only surviving because Barou's a solo weapon, with the fact that Shidou is more of a team player, he would have made more reasonable plays. And Shidou's basically offensive killing spatial awareness would have been way too much for Nico to handle, as it took up Isagi up to the third selection to understand, and people like Nanase could never understand Win and Shidou even in the third selection. So for someone like Nico to understand him this early on, hell no. Now we also have to deal with the fact that he faces Nagi in the next round. Something we've never really seen is a Nagi and Shidou interaction. So this match would start off hot, as I believe Team X did start in the original manga, so Shidou would be pacing, only to have Zantetsu and Ryo try to jump him. But similar to Barou, he has this thing where he can accelerate his charge. It's only when he's on offense though, he cannot do this on defense. So he will be charging, and then it will take a bunch of players to try and stop him. Shidou would then make a basically spinning kick, the similar way he scored the third goal for this first selection when it was him and Isagi and Rin to score the first goal. And then Ryo and Zantetsu would have to formulate a devastating duel, as Ryo would be using his dribbling skills to try and distract Shidou for a bit, just to pass it to Zantetsu, who would use his full speed to get himself a goal to make it 1-1. This game is going to be dangerous.
Then they would try again. The duo of Santetsu and Reo would really be trying to pressure him. They would ask Nagi for help. So when Shidou brings the ball to the air or tries to pass it to a teammate, that's when it would be Nagi's call to intercept. That would be the plan for Reo and Santetsu to try and press. And when they finally get a press and pressure Shidou for him to try and pass to a teammate, they would definitely have Nagi to intercept, and then Nagi would start a triangle play with Reo and Zantetsu, as Nagi wouldn't really want to score goals, and this would lead to Reo scoring his first goal of the match. And then they would try the similar pattern again, but Shidou would definitely change things up as he would try to use an aerial move. But here's where Nagi's aerial trapping abilities come into play, as he would trap the ball and get it to Reo, and they would do another counter attack. This would really impress Shidou, and Reo would score another goal, making it 3-1. And then all of a sudden, Shidou would just shoot from the start, similar to Rin and Barou, but it would go to no avail. And then it would go to another counterattack. Nagi, Reo, and Zantetsu. And then Shidou would be barking at Nagi at why he isn't doing anything. He would say, let me see more of it. So Nagi would get pressurized. I don't know if he would use mental talk compared to Barou, as Barou was really more of a mental phase than him. But I think Nagi would take a simple shot just to score, as Reo would see that and make Nagi challenge Shidou, as Nagi, his offensive speed is better than Shidou's defensive speed, leading it to be 4-1. And then Shidou, he would do like a pass it to his players, and then he would make them set him up, and then he would just tell them to like kick it as high as you can, and Shidou would definitely score a massive, insane bicycle kick, as in their penalty box, he is the king there. It would be 4-2. And then we wouldn't have that Nagi explosive stage where he trapped the ball and then scored a massive goal against him, because Shidou is, first of all, not a mental person to really go in your head, so Nagi wouldn't have been riled up in this game, which kind of sucks, because Nagi wouldn't have scored an epic goal, which means that Shidou would have figured out a way to try and counter them, but to no avail. Even if he did score a third goal in this match, it would have been too late, as when Nagi did score the fifth goal, that was basically the end of the match. So I think the match would have ended 4-3, but if there was additional time, Shidou would have caught up to equalize the game. So this leaves Team X with a total of 6 points, and that is not looking good, because that means in the original timeline, Team Z would also have to get the 7 points, and this would mean that. And after that game against Nagi, we also have to talk about an interaction that happens after, which is Shidou and Isagi, where Isagi tries to find his type of weapon, because Ego gives them the talk after Kuon scored a hat-trick and Chigiri equalized the game winner against Team W, game saver. So basically, Ego gives the talk about how you need to duplicate goals, which means you need a weapon. And Isagi was looking for a weapon, and that's where he meets Barou in the original timeline. Shidou would have been more than happy to use him as a pet. He wouldn't have tried as hard as Barou has, because Barou would have been scoring, but Shidou would have just been flexing. And I feel like it would have taken more time, because Shidou does not always go for the same direct 29-meter shot that Barou does. Barou always replicates his shot. Shidou can just do anything he wants, so it would have been a bit harder for Isagi to adapt, but I do believe he would have conquered something out of that learning, because Isagi is a freaking genius. Now heading into the second selection, here's where things change for the worse. In this game against Naohaya and Shidou, because we have to keep it to the original timeline, Shidou and Naohaya will decimate Isagi and Nagi, as Shidou would have already been used to both of them, and the only chance Isagi and Nagi has is if they do not mess up any play. But with Naohaya being there, they would have messed up a few plays, just like how Naohaya intercepted for Barou to score, and Shidou wouldn't have messed around and missed the shots that Barou missed, which means that they would have scored 5 goals way quicker, to the fact that I don't even think Isagi would have noticed on Naohaya using blind spots until he got to the wild card. And speaking of the wild card, yeah, Shidou's taking Nagi. With the fact that he can trap the ball, and he would have been scoring more goals than Isagi in that match, which I think they would have scored 3 goals at best. they would have definitely taken them. Because if Kunigami and Rail, who were probably a better duo before Isagi learned blind spots, couldn't even score free goals, because the way Shidou explains it, he was just a bit flashier than you. So at best, they scored 3 goals, meaning Rail had 2 and Kunigami must have had 1, or it was probably 5-0, so he just said who made better plays. It was either 5-1, 5-3, or 5-0 for Shidou against Rail and Kunigami, which means bye-bye Isagi, go to the wild card. And speaking of that, that means Kunigami, Rail, and Chigiri never get to see Isagi in this timeline, which means Barou and Igaguri never meet them, because actually, yeah, they will meet them, because Shidou, Nagi, and Naohaya will meet Kunigami, Rail, and Chigiri, and this would be an insane matchup. I am not gonna go over this play by play, but basically the fact that Nagi knows Rail, which saved their match against in the real timeline, as Nagi knew what Rail would have done and Isagi's expertise. Shidou wouldn't have been like a Barou where they would have had to miss up their first few plays because Barou was just being a B, which led to their early goals of Kunigami, Rail, and Chigiri. This meant that the match would have finished way earlier and way quicker, with probably a 5-3 deficit, leading to Shidou taking Chigiri, as his speed would have been the most explosive and impressive thing to them, which meant that since they don't, Nagi is in control of this team, as I think Shidou would have been the team leader, since he has the most aggression and would have probably beat up anyone who tried to take charge. He wouldn't face Rin because he wouldn't care about Rin at the time, and he wouldn't have known Rin until way later in the story, which means that they probably pick up a 5th random nobody and call it a day. Meaning that Rin, Bachira, Ryu, and Tokimitsu have to pick up some random nobody too, which would have been bad for Rin's development, as Rin really needed Isagi to push him in that last match that they played in the second selection, which meant that Rin wouldn't have been able to score a goal because it took Isagi's distraction for him to use him as bait to score. So that would have been proven badly later on in the story. Now, in terms of Barou and Igaguri, this would have been really bad for whoever went down there, which would have been Kunigami and Rail, because Barou is not going to lose to Kunigami and Rail. Even though because they needed 3 people to do it. Actually, that's actually a good question. Could Kunigami and Rail, because if Shidou could probably beat them alone, I'm pretty sure Barou could have, because I don't think Igaguri did much, and I think Igaguri would have just been serving Barou, similar to how Naohaya did, and I do not believe Kunigami and Rail would be strong enough to defeat him either. And for the sake of the storyline, I cannot have Igaguri going. Do we do this? Let me know, chat. Do you think it's the right decision to make Kunigami and Rail beat him? I don't think so, because this is tough. They would probably try to trap him, but at the same time, their tactic to stopping Barou only works because Chigiri was there for speed. Even if Kunigami tried to, Barou would have just, and Rail would have, I think, since Igaguri is such a small fry, similar to Naohaya and Team X, Barou wouldn't have felt pressured that Igaguri would have scored, so it meant that he would have definitely passed to him. So I do see Barou working with Igaguri just a little bit, only when he's fully pressured, because when he was fully pressured against Isagi and Nagi, he did pass, and even in the first game on the BlueLock story, he did pass, so he is capable of passing. It's just, I feel like with Isagi and Nagi, since he lost to them just prior, I feel like he would have been really pissed, so he wouldn't have passed to any of them, since they could actually score off of his passes, which would have made him not the most valuable person on the field. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, bye-bye Kunigami. So I mean bye-bye Rail, because in this story, Barou wanted Kunigami more when they beat them in the original timeline, which means Barou, Kunigami, and Igaguri would have connected people like Corona and I forgot the last dude's name, Tetsu or Sokura or whatever his name is. Yeah. Okay, I need to start picking up the story because I took a lot of time explaining why Bao's team would have won that match. So heading into the World 5, like I said, Rin wouldn't have scored in this original timeline because it took Isagi's distraction for them to get a goal. But at the same time, I feel like Bachira or Tokimitsu or someone would have probably been able to make a close enough goal, because they only started taking things seriously when they scored. But at the same time, some teams didn't score, which means that if you're not good enough, you won't score. Now, with Shidou being way better than Barou in this original timeline, teaming up with Nagi, Chigiri, I'm pretty sure Zantetsu would have been the last person they took. Or no, it would have been Kiora, because I don't think they would have picked up Zantetsu in a 3v3 at the time, because they would have actually never faced Rin, which means they would have never fallen down. So it means they would have probably picked up Kiora. With those 5 insane talents over freaking Bao's team with Nagi, I'm pretty sure Shidou would have scored. And this changes a lot, because that means coming out of the second selection and into the third selection, Shidou would actually be the only person who would have scored against the World 5, which means Rin would have been number 2 and Shidou would have been number 1. Which, if it wasn't for the fact that Shidou has no chemistry with anybody, he would have been BlueLock's ace heading into the U20 World Cup. But this would not be the case. I'll keep the third selection matches the same, because Shidou and Rin are still teaming up, and I don't think anything needs to change, except for the fact that Kunigami would definitely be taking what's his name, Isagi's places, and Naohaya would definitely be taking Ryo's places, as Naohaya is a big Nagi fan. And Naohaya would have not known who Rin was at the time. So yeah, those are the only changes, because Isagi and Ryo would be in the wild card.
Hey guys, I know it's been 3 to 4 months since I did part 1 of the Shidou and Barou swap battle, but I wanted to talk to you guys about part 2. So let's get a refresher of part 1 before we get to part 2 though. So Team X, Shidou would win their match against Team W and potentially draw against Team Y, as Shidou is more of a team player than Barou. Isagi would get eliminated against Shidou and Naohaya, and Barou would lose to Ryo and Kunigami, since Nagi and Ryo would still face off, as Ryo would want revenge and lose. So Igaguri and Isagi would be in the wildcard. We get to the 35 people reviewed, and Bachiro would be very devastated that his best friend Isagi couldn't do jack without him. And now we get the review that since Isagi is gone, I doubt Rin would score against the top 5, so Shidou would actually be number 1 for scoring against them, and Rin would be number 2, since Shidou would have scored against the top 5. Now, if that's set in stone, I would have had Kunigami take a spot in Team B, hoping to be with Chigiri, and Naohaya would take a spot in Team A to be with the best, being Itoshi, Rin, and Ryusei Shidou. Now, the tryouts arc would go similarly, except Team A could potentially lose the first match since Naohaya is weaker than Isagi. Now that we've caught up, let's talk about point systems. Now in my versus battles, I always have point systems, but here I have not implemented a point system for swap battles. So let's talk about who did better in first round. It had to be Shidou, because we've actually seen what he did, so Shidou would take the first selection point. The second selection point would have to go to Shidou, as well, as he dominantly carries his team throughout the whole way, and he plays with smaller fries compared to Barou, and Barou actually got carried by Ryo and Kunigami and lost his elimination match, unlike Shidou, who won his elimination match where he could have been sent to the wild card. And the third selection has to be Shidou again, as he does a better job and gets to play more games since he's the number 1, and actually scored against the World 5, as that is also part of the third selection arc. It's just merged with the tryouts arc. Now, with that set in stone, the score right now is 2-1. Can Barou equalize in the U20 match? Let's go. The starting 11 would be similarly, except that Bachiro would be an offensive midfielder instead of Isagi, and I would take Kurona as left striker back, as Isagi's role was to maximize Itoshi Win's performance and coexist with him, which goes up in Bachiro's alley, as he was the one who helped him score against the World 5 in the first place, and his monster would be of great help in the up front, as he did nothing on defense in the original manga. Now in this version, instead of choosing Shidou, Sei would obviously choose the Barou lion, trying to tame him down by his fangs. This would lead to Shidou staying on the BlueLock team, but won't be a starter. as Onyx stated in the video that I'll just play the footage over. So
as a player, I feel like the starting lineup for the BlueLock 11 would remain exactly the same. Ego himself stated in chapter 109 that if Shidou were to have one of his violent outbursts in the middle of the match, he would most certainly get red carded, putting the BlueLock 11 at a severe disadvantage. Not to mention that throughout all of the BlueLock 11 tryout matches, not even for a single moment did Rin, the heart of the BlueLock 11, have a chemical reaction with Shidou. Ego even goes as far as to say that there is not a single person in BlueLock that would be able to handle the egoist Shidou Ryusei. However, Ego did mention that if things were going south in the game, that he was saving Shidou to be Rin's replacement as a wild joker, a player that could turn the tide of the match single-handedly if the BlueLock 11 found themselves at a pinch. However, we know that this never happened because Shidou ended up playing for the U20 team. However, just because the BlueLock 11 had the same starting lineup as before doesn't mean...
So we would have the U20 scene where Barou would really make a scene like Shidou did, but he would just trash talk Sendo for being a weak striker compared to him. He wouldn't really give up his spot because he's not going to give up his spot. Sendo's not going to give up his spot. And Japan did not want BlueLock to get shine, so they would obviously try and hide Barou the best way they could because it's sarcasm, am I right? Now the first half of the game would go nearly the same since Barou and Shidou rode the bench, but Isagi is in the wildcard and Kunigami is not, and Bachura, like I said earlier, would take his role and Corona would be starting. Win would pass the ball to Bachura and he would immediately start cooking. Hayate would be the first problem that arises for Bachura, but he would get trapped, and in the original he passes it to Isagi, but now there's no Isagi. He would see that Tero's right in front and would pass it to Yukimiya, and we would see the birth of a chemical reaction between Bachura and Yukimiya, both breaking through Nero and the left side of the defense, as Yukimiya would try to get a gyro shot, but IQ would show why you need to invest in his stocks. Oh man, oh man. So then we would get to see that by stopping it, he would get it to Itoshi Sei, who tests Sendo to score, but he misses, and Sei catches the rebound to score the first goal, making it 1-0. Now, since Isagi wasn't involved in the first goal for the BlueLock team, we would see Nagi get a goal back to make it 1-1. As Ego stated in chapter 118, Yoichi Isagi is essential for Rin Itoshi's awakening, and even Rin confirms it by saying this warped relationship benefits them both. The game would resume, and even Yoichi Isagi is the one who made Rin awaken flow state. So Ego was right. At the 30-minute mark, Rin would ask his brother that, don't I get a hello? And he would try to get the ball back for his team, but Sei would bait him out, making him draw out his right leg and blitzes past him. Rin would catch up to him immensely fast, declaring a sibling war. Rin tries to get the ball back, but Sei keeps it protected with his right leg and passes him again with a block turn. Rin would try and catch up again, but Sei would use his shoulder block to push himself away from Rin. Literally, oh no, I made this really sad. Then he hits him with a nutmeg with that 3-year deja vu effect. Now finally, Sei has finally broken through the midfield. Sei tries to get the ball to Sendo for an assist, but Watchdog Nico was having that no-nonsense defense and sends it to Karasu, who attempts to break down the U20 defense, but utilizing Otoya and Shiguri to get himself an open shot, but he doesn't calculate the fact that Sei a freaking Toshi would read that play like a children's book and send that ball further than Kaiser's Magnus impact field, but it lands straight to Ren, who would land a devastating Trivela to make it 2-1. Psych! IQ would be there. Rin wouldn't have Isagi to distract IQ from getting the ball to his advantage. Since IQ took on the fact that Isagi and Rin were very linked up, he had to watch out for both of them. Here, he only has to watch out for Rin. Meanwhile, Bachura is there in this game. Bachura does not have that presence that Isagi does, and reaction with Rin that he does as well. Now, we would get to see Rin miss, and Bachura would see an opening to break through the defense since IQ was with Rin, and with no IQ, Bachura would properly cook the U20 defense to score since Sendo didn't have that defensive mindset of an awakening just yet. This would give BlueLock the lead 2-1. This deficit and Sei's words would finally light a fire under the U20 team, with all of them pressing for an equalizer, which in turn would make the BlueLock 11 resort to plan B per Rin's orders. Corona and Bachura would press Kitsune Zato, and here's the difference. Here, they would actually rip the ball off of him since Corona is much faster than Isagi at this point of the story. So he would work with Bachura to move up the ball, blissing everyone down, trying to get past the U20 iron wall. So they would have a triangle chemical reaction with Seishu and Nagi joining in the fray, as Nagi was the one to stay up front per Rin's orders. And with Nero and Aiku both waiting on Bachura, he would have to give it up to Kurona. And since he was free to move, more free than Nagi, he would try to pass it to a right open Nagi who fakes out the ride to perform a two-stage freaking body. But freaking Itoshi Sei again gets the ball to stop and rescue them. The reason why Sei was the first to get back was because when he did shoot in the original canon, Isagi and Bachura were behind him. But in this version of the story, Sei has no one behind him. So it means Sei would just track down the ball because Sei was the closest outside of the box besides Isagi and Bachura. So the game would end 2-1 at halftime. Now we would get to the original events where Rin would have been crying, reminiscing about Sei, but that's not a backstory story today. U20 team would be in despair trying to figure out how to survive, and Sei would say he's going home. The BlueLock team would be in high morals, and then Barou would be pissed, about to say something, but IQ says, "I'm sorry, we were weak. I was the one who gave the bet. And now that I know that, we have one last card to play, and his name is Shorei Barou." And IQ would be hesitant about this because he knows Barou from the Nationals, so he would have really not wanted to. But with the fact that this was his last chance to keep Sei Itoshi on the team, he would do it. Now that we have Barou entering the pitch, let's talk about how the hell this duo would work. So we first of all have to analyze the differences between Shidou and Barou. For Barou, first of all, his charging skill is insane as he just bursted through two defenders to score his goal in the U20 match. One of them being Neo, whose only good feature was being his strength. And I believe in terms of pure strength, Barou has the edge over Shidou. For the previous feat mentioned, Barou's leadership is also underrated as after he scored the second goal for the Ubers team, he made the whole team have a stronger edge, and being the #1 hard-headed egoist will bring a new edge to this U20 team. His heel flicks, chop feints, and other stuff that Shidou can or possibly can't do. There's so many advantages to having Barou over Shidou. And Barou has something similar to Isagi, which is adaptability. Not as great as Isagi, but he has the terms to actually improve during games, unlike Shidou, who only gets excited by the flow, but that will only increase his shooting power and his offensive awareness. Barou, on the other hand, can increase his midfield, offensive, and defensive abilities with his flow state. He has possibly one of the top 3 best flow states in BlueLock. So now, I didn't even need to talk about his defense because U20 is only known for their iron wall before Sei Itoshi joined the team for a game. Now, let's talk about how this translates to the pitch. The game would start and Sei would pass it to a charging Barou who would be cut off by Chiguri. Keep in mind, in this point of the story, Chiguri doesn't really know about Barou unless he really kept a keen eye on him in the trials arc. But thanks to Wei and Kunigami knowing him from teaming up with him in the second selection, since they beat him and Igaguri, we would have a situation where Barou could potentially be dispossessed. And he wouldn't pass it to Sendo. Instead, he would use his front dribbling to get past Chiguri. But like Santetsu did in the second selection, Chiguri would catch up to him without directly pressing him. Sei wouldn't implement this plan of Sendo trailing down Barou as he did with Shidou in the original canon because Shidou was a passer. Barou is not, so he wouldn't even need to waste his time with it. And Barou did not conquer his no passing state unless he is comfortable with it, like how he usually does in the first selection, because he did not meet Hiragi in this point of the story, which means Barou would get dispossessed by Chiguri and Sei would catch it and uses a reflexive pass to get it to Barou, who charges in for a header. But keep in mind, Nico is short and weak and wouldn't be able to keep up with Barou freaking charging with a header. Golly! So Barou would header it, but Gagamaro catches it and sends the ball off to the BlueLock 11 for a counter. The ball would land to Nagi, who would try to move forward and sends the ball to Bachura, who has a 1v1 with IQ, allowing Rin to slip by, and Bachura would assist Rin, making the game 3-1. The BlueLock stadium would be in shock. Everyone would be in shock as BlueLock would have a comfortable 2-goal cushion lead. Chiki would fall down, indicating that he is tired. This would lead him getting subbed off for Hiyori. And Nico, even though he isn't tired or got carded, would have to get out solely for the reason that he is small and weak. He would have to get subbed off for freaking Rayo, so Rayo would have a better chance of stopping Barou. Now this would get Sei Itoshi fired up because he could actually lose to his twin brother. And if he loses to Rin, his whole plan, which I think, because he's similar to Itachi Uchiha, of Rin becoming a dominant player and finding out his true ego for playing football, would not work. Because if he beats his brother so easily, it wouldn't motivate Rin further, and Rin would have a downfall that Nagi's kind of having now for beating Isagi. So we would get to see Sei Itoshi play at not 100%, but trying early on in the game at the 55th minute instead of the 75th, which is 20 more minutes of Sei Itoshi gonna kick. So say itoshi blitzes through Nagi and Barou, and then passes through Karasu and Otoya. Rin would try to stop him and to no avail as Sei does a lift off above his younger brother. What a flex! And then he would nutmeg Yukimiya, and then he would just do a heel flick past Chigiri as Nagiri uses trapping abilities to slow down Chigiri's thought process in the second selection. So Sei would do something similar to that. Sei would pass it to Barou, but Rin would realize his play by submerging his mind with that of his brother and actually foul Barou instead of just getting the ball, because in this version Rin has never met Barou, because Barou's U20 trials match was for Team Karasu and Otoya against Team Nagi, so Rin would have never actually played against Barou, so he wouldn't have known his unpredictability state or how to defend him, which means we would get a free kick. And say itoshi would know how to create a goal hunter due to experience or something that would adapt to Barou. So what the plan would be was he would pass it to Sendo, and Sendo would pass it to Kitsunato, passing it to Cho, passing it to another, over and over and over and over and over and over until it passes back to Seitoshi, and Seitoshi looks like he's about to shoot or make a massive pass forward. But just like how Isagi and Hiyori fell for Karasu's ball heel flick in the PXG game, Sei would do a reverse ball heel flick to Barou, who is waiting like the lion seen through his prey in the garden of the grass in the savannah, scores a massive mid-range kick to make it 3-2. The BlueLock 11 would try and make a move to score, but say itoshi fired up with seafood display and make a direct pass to Barou, who's about to enter throw, and without Chigiri there would be no one to keep up with his thunder dribbling phase and heel flicks, and he would break through the midfield and defense, and then he would shoot a screamer that would get saved by Gagama. But one thing about Gagama throughout this game was that he was usually punching the ball away. There was only one time he actually caught the ball and kept it to himself when it was Rayo was guarding him, but with no one to properly guard Barou would make him have to deflect it, and Barou would rebound that with his freaking knee to slide it and to make it 3-3. The game is equalized, the crowd would go crazy, everyone would be fired up. As for the next 5 minutes it would be a grueling back and forth affair, and then Barou would try to cook the whole team and score to make it 4-3 with lots of tries, but Sendo fired up would stop it and send the ball to IQ, and IQ would get the ball to Sei, who passes it between Yukimi and Karasu, leaving them stunned as he didn't pass the ball. But another striker, Kitsuna Zato, would get his shot blocked off by Rayo. Sendo would get the rebound and shoot, but it's deflected by Nagi and Hiyori. Sei gets it, but it's cut off by Otoya. Since Isagi isn't there, he or Corona would have been the only two fast people to react to him in some circumstance, and he would pass it to IQ, but Rin deflects it, seeing what his brother was trying to do. Sei sends a corner, and Rin thinks it's going to Aiko, so he marks him, but instead it goes to Barou, and with no Isagi to get in Barou's way like he did with Shidou, Barou would power through and get himself a hat trick of a header to make it 3-4. Barou! Barou! The crowd would be chanting as he has made a hat trick. The world would have known the name of Shorei Barou. So now they would get ready to commence, but the Hublood projector would be on, showing number 10 in red and number 13 in green, meaning Ryusei Shidou has finally entered the pitch, subbing in for Rin. Rin would be mad, asking Ego why the hell is he getting subbed off, and he would simply respond, "We are losing, and I wanted to use my Joker card. There's no better time than now. If we lose this game, we don't exist. So fuck off." This game would continue with everyone trying to go for a counter to make it 4-4. Now, I did consider Kunigami instead of Hiyori, since Kunigami is more of an offensive presence than Hiyori in terms of striking abilities, and this team would have provided with goals from Kunigami for sure. But the problem is, Hiyori would be able to pass to Shidou the way Shidou likes it. Even though Ego did say that no one can tame him, Karasu has good intel on Shidou, on how Shidou works. And the only problem with Karasu is that he doesn't have the body to control it. But he would trust his femboy Hiyori to do that. And so they would get a ball in, and Hiyori would make an insane reflexive pass to Shidou, who would make the game 4-4. The game would continue with everyone trying to get the ball into Shidou again, but IQ would put extra pressure to block Shidou because IQ would be the only one in an aerial circumstance to keep up with Shidou. So we would get a play where Nagi tries to score, but Fukaku would luckily save it, and IQ would try to lock down Shidou, but Shidou kicks it up and the ball is just leaving. Shidou's thinking if he should pass it to someone, but it says his cells are exploding. They're waiting to implode. They need to
bust a nut in the room. So he gets a freaking reverse bicycle kick from half court, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and bust a nut inside that room to make it 5-4. With 4 minutes left of the game, it's looking like BlueLock 11 may have saved themselves and saved the whole BlueLock corporation from going extinct. So Sei would make a play for Barou to score a mid-range shot, but Gagamaru would save it and throw it out to Nagi, and he would receive it, but IQ would deflect that at the last moment, as IQ would be very fired up. The whole team is fired up, and the whole team would be pressing forward due to IQ's orders. Sei would have more options to give, but a low ball to Barou would be perfect, and he would try to score, but Rayo would deflect it. But similar to the Uber's game, the hyena Shidou Sendo would come with the rebound to equalize the game 5-5. Tensions are rising. Everyone's pressured. The U20 trying to avoid being shamed by people who weren't even known till today, and the BlueLock Corporation trying to fight for survival and also overthrow the U20 Japan's team. As if they beat them, their names would be carved in the world for history for overthrowing these clowns. The pressure would be there. Everyone would be tense, locked in, and it would be top performance on top performance. This is because now Sei would have to play defense. Everyone would try to get the ball to Shidou, but Sei can predict Shidou's movements easily. As, how do I say this? Isagi had a very easy time dealing with Shidou in the late minutes of the game. So with that being said, Shidou would have to pass it to Nagi, and Nagi would be fired up and awakened, because without Isagi, Nagi in the second selection was very fired up, especially in the 4v4, and he would try to score, but Nayo would try to stop him, and IQ would fail as well, as IQ would have to be on Shidou. With Nagi passing through Nayo, we would have Shurei Barou, and this is the part where I talked about his defensive feats getting awakened. With Barou in full-on flow state, he would be able to charge down and stop Nagi and pass the ball to itoshi Sei. And if Shidou could freaking run to the shot course in the final play of the game, I'm pretty sure Barou would too. So Sei would get the ball. Everyone would be going in. Ryu would have to press full control. We would have an instance where freaking Nagi tries to attack Sei because he was first, and then we would see Sei pass through Nagi, and then he would pass through Shidou, then Bachura. Karasu would scream not to rush him, that he would buy some time, but realistically Karasu was not doing anything, and he would get cooked too. And with no wind to hold back Sei, they would be done for, as they would have had to send too many men on Sei, and Sei with his final attack, knowing that it's the final attack, everyone would be getting in the pitch in the penalty box to try and get a goal in. And Ryu would be on show, like I said. Otoya and Corona would be trying to be in position to help Rail stop Barou in case Barou gets the ball. Sei would pass it to Barou. All three of them would leap against Barou, but it goes a bit up higher than all of them would have expected. It goes to the captain, the snake, the one whose flower died but blooms again. All of your IQ finishes it off with a header to make it 5-6. This would boost everyone's morale in their stadium, as all of your IQ, the captain himself, saves U20 Japan from shame and wins the game for them, which means BlueLock would be cancelled. Barou and Sei would have been known around the world as the hat-trick hero and the prodigy himself saving U20. We would get Sendo being recognized as the ace of Japan, as he saved them from even having to get a draw because he would have scored the equalizer just a few minutes ago. But the Blue Lockers would get pro clubs. What a story. This was part 2, so this is the end of it. If you guys would like a part 3 where we revive BlueLock by the magic plumber of plot armor and fan servers demand, let me know in the comment section. If we get 20 likes, I will immediately start working on it. But for now, comment section, it's up to you to save part 3. Now, I enjoyed making this video, and I just want to say, let's get Shidou to Italy and Barou to France. Peace out.